Welcome to the Vibrant Beginnings podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Asha Thomas. This week I am joined by Jayne, who is someone I have known since elementary school, since we were 6 years old. And it's really cool to see her evolution becoming a mother and having kiddos of her own that some of them play on the playground and some of them are a little older to play on the playground. But it's pretty cool to see her evolution. So, in Jayne's own words, my name is Jayne and I'm a mother of four awesome humans. My boys are almost 15, 13, and 7. My daughter is 5. I am a medical assistant with Alcona Health Center and I work in a clinic in the high school. I have all of my schooling under my belt to begin in the nursing program. I just have to wait for the right time for my family. This took me a very long time to complete with 4 kids. Hobbies up until recently with the divorce, it was tending to my chickens and ducks, but soon I'll be back at it again. I love to garden and I'm a plant lady. I also am a big runner in the spring and summer. I think that's my way of distressing. My best friend and I like to go on really long hikes in the area. As a family, we are big on adventures. Our favorite place in the summer is Ocqueoc because the kids love running around in the water and jumping into the waterfalls. We love to fish as well. Road trips are really common for us since my oldest plays hockey, so we try to make the best out of our trips and find new places to adventure. With that, I give you Jayne. All right, let's get started.
Okay.
So, welcome, Jayne. I hear you have 4 kiddos. Can you tell me a little bit about some of those births and different milestones maybe that have stood out to you and how they've been different?
Sure. So each one of their births were very different. Um, my oldest is Owen, and he'll be 15 next month, which seems so old.
Aw.
So I had him young. I had him when I was 20 years old. So we were a young mom and dad, and we tried to prepare the best that we could, and I thought I did a good job with that one. And actually, his dad was, like, going through boot camp and everything for the majority of, like, the end of my pregnancy, so my sister stepped in, and we went to, like, birthing classes together, and she helped me do a lot of the shopping and everything. Mind you, she doesn't have any kids of her own yet at this
Yeah, oh,
point.
cool.
So we were both just, like, we were winging it, like,
Yeah.
but I felt the most prepared with Owen's birth. Like, we went into it, I was very calm. I knew what to kind of expect, like, throughout the process of birth, but it was still scary.
Yeah.
So my sister helped out a lot during, like, the beginning stages of labor with everything that we learned in Lamaze together.
Yeah.
And then when it came close for Owen to be born, she stepped out and Owen's dad was there, and it was just us 2 in the room, which was really nice. Um, and labor progressed pretty smoothly. It just took a little bit longer because he was my first.
Yeah.
And I ended up having to push for about 2.5 hours, I think. He just didn't wanna come out.
Oh.
But finally he did. He was 8 pounds, 4 ounces. And he was the first baby of the family, so there was a lot on both sides, so it was a
Yeah.
lot of excitement being the first grandbaby. Um, I remember my dad walking in just bawling already. He didn't even see the baby
Oh.
yet, and he just bawling. So I remember because now my dad has passed, so I hold on to those memories really close.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was pretty much because Owen's dad was going through training and everything for the Marine Corps still. I mean, yeah, he was there for the birth, but afterwards he was still going through training. It was pretty much just me and Owen. And I think that's probably why we're so close today because we had
Yeah.
to conquer everything on our own together. So we have a special bond with that, I think. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, and then Colin, he was born in December, almost 2 years later, and that was my naval hospital birth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that one was quick, a little bit traumatic.
Yeah.
Um, he he was due on December 20th, and he came on December 20th at 12:12 AM. Like, he was
Wow.
on time. I
That,
forgot
like,
to
never
mention
happens.
never. And Owen was due on St. Patrick's Day, but he decided to wait 8 days.
Oh, nice.
So there was a lot of, anticipation with that one.
For
But
sure.
Colin, yeah, he came out 12 a.m., and he was my water broke with him. It was like 11. I wanna say I keep saying it was like 11 o'clock, like, on the dot, 'cause I remember looking at the clock before going to bed. It was about 11 o'clock, um, and he was out at 12 a.m., so that's how quick it was.
Oh.
My water broke at home. We had to go drop Owen off at, Andy's staff sergeant's house.
Oh gosh.
'Cause we didn't know anybody at the
Yeah.
time, so we had to rely on, like, his chain of command, so he him and his wife watched Owen while we ran up to the hospital. It was really quick. They didn't really believe me that my water broke, so
Yeah.
they're like, "Here, go in the bathroom and put this strip down there, and we'll see if it's amniotic fluid." I'm like, "Okay, but I'm telling you, this baby's coming out."
Yeah.
And they got us, headed to our room. I don't wanna say settled. We were heading to my delivery room, and as soon as I stepped in the door, Colin started to come out.
Oh gosh.
So I just kinda, like, dropped. I'm like,
Yeah.
"He's coming out." And so Andrew and the nurse had to carry me over to the bed, like, as they're pulling my pants down. And within 2 pushes they were trying to get the doctor there in time. I'm like, "I'm not waiting for this.
Yeah.
I'm not
Like,
doing
this
it. I'm
kid is
not
coming.
holding this." Yeah, he's coming out and he's coming quick. And
Oh
I
gosh.
was maybe 1 push, 2 pushes, and he was out. He just, like, flew out.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically my husband at the time, he just looks at me and he goes, "Oh my god, you're a freak." And and I would have taken it a lot worse had that experience not been that way.
Right.
It was. We both looked at each other and were like, "What the heck just happened?"
Yeah.
Like, there was no I didn't have a chance to, like, tell my brain to calm down. There was no, like, talking myself into breathing. There was no time for any of that.
Right.
Everything that I knew I was supposed to do to prepare for this baby to come out, like, I had no time to do any of that. It was
Wow.
just panic. It was just panic. And then so that birth was super easy. Um, and then so Andrew deployed probably about I think Colin was 2 when he deployed. Um, and then when he came back, it was November. Colin was almost 3, and I got pregnant with our baby number 3. Um, and this I actually didn't tell you about this ahead of time, but I heard somebody else's podcast. I'm like, I
You're
feel
good.
comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
So this was baby number 3 of ours. And at the Naval Hospital, they have a rule that you have to be, I want to say 13 or 14 weeks before they'll even see you.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
I was about 14 weeks when I had my first appointment, and they did an ultrasound that same day. And we'd already known for heck 2 months at that point that we were
Yeah.
pregnant. And they could not find a heartbeat or anything. So they're like, well, maybe the baby's just not progressed along enough. Um, because they saw something in there. They're just maybe just doesn't have a heartbeat yet. And we're like, okay, well, that's not possible because at that point we knew we were already 12 weeks along. So they're like, come back in a week. And if baby still has no heartbeat, then they'll do the procedure for the abortion. And coincidentally, the next appointment was on Valentine's Day.
Oh man.
Yeah. So we went in, had the ultrasound, still no heartbeat, still no formation of the baby. So they sent us home. They didn't do the procedure there. They sent us home and they sent me home with cytotec pills.
Mhm.
And they instructed me to wait until tonight and to put these inside of me myself.
Mm.
And looking back, I'm like, oh my God, this is barbaric. Like, I
Mhm.
have to do this myself. I have to deal with this at home. I already have 2 children at home. Like, and yeah, so we went home and we did what we were supposed to. And it was like the middle of the night when I started contracting. And I think it's worse. because you know that there's no baby at the end.
Right.
So the contractions were so much worse than I remembered with my other 2, and I just had to do it at home by myself, and I we were walking out the door the next day, and the baby passed, like, came out of me,
Mhm.
and so I had to run back to the bathroom and discard it. Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was my journey with the first 3, technically speaking,
Yeah.
um, and then it was a few years down the road, and I was with Spencer, and we got pregnant, and we were super excited. Um, that one didn't last long either, so I miscarried back to back. That one wasn't as traumatic. It was just a lot of excitement and then not excitement, but I was pretty okay with it. I had a lot of
Mhm.
support. Um, so it was just something that I just had to kind of, oh, I don't know the word for it, just kind of come to terms with
Right.
and like allow myself to grieve and then move on because I had 2 other children that I needed to care for.
Yeah.
And it was about a year later that I got pregnant again with Walter. Man, that kid, the birth was totally normal, but that kid now, he is 7,
Yeah.
and he is, I don't even know how to describe him. He is like, he's a wild man.
Oh, I love
And I
that.
don't, I think it's because his older brothers, because Colin is 6 years older than him. So Owen's almost 8 years older than him, so he's got them 2 to look up to, and they're a little crazy on their own because 'cause they're a little older, but, um so that birth I was really nervous about because this was Spencer's first baby, and he didn't wanna do the whole, like, birthing classes, like, he thought that, "Oh, this is fine, like, he's got this, he's a man, he can be there for me," like, that
Yeah.
was his way of thinking. I'm like, "Okay,"
He didn't wanna even prep at all, man.
No,
He's
no, he's
brave.
like, "I got this." He thought he had this, and I'm like, "Okay, well, if you wanna go in blindfolded, then that's by all means,
Yeah,
it's gonna be a whole adventure for you."
for sure. Oh
So,
gosh.
yeah, so Walter, I had a wonderful pregnancy with him, it was really easy, they told me that he was gonna be big, which I expected, wine cough babies are big, um,
Was
but
he as big as they claimed?
he well, had I waited the whole, like, 40 weeks, if he made it to the 40-week mark, he probably would have been a 10-pounder, which fine, but
Yeah.
I could have done it. But we decided to, because there was a snowstorm coming. We lived about, 40 minutes from the hospital at that point, especially in the snow.
Yeah.
So well, I guess not I decided to, kinda take control of the situation, and they had told me that I had so much amniotic fluid in there anyways that he was kinda just bobbing. He
Mm,
wasn't, like, working his way down like he was supposed to, so we opted for, an induction at 39 weeks. We went in at about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and he was out 3 hours later.
oh, wow.
All they had to do was break my water, and it started everything. Um, it was and all 3 boys were I had unmedicated births, like, I was determined, like, in my head, I'm like, "I can do this without an epidural." I don't know why, it was like, and I get it, everybody's, like, different, and it's not, like, a competition or anything. It was a competition with myself. I'm like, "I
Right.
know I can do this
I love it.
unmedicated." So, I was determined all 3 times. I'm like, "I'm gonna do this." And
Yeah.
it was great all 3 times. So, I'm glad I'm glad I did that. But Walter, yeah, he was a big boy. He came out and he was 9 pounds on the dot a
Oh,
week
wow.
early, and he was the most content baby ever.
That's
He
awesome.
like, even through, like, the first few months and everything, like, he was probably my easiest baby. So and then that brings me into Isla's birth, a short year and a half later.
Aw.
Um, I was not prepared for hers.
No?
Not at all. I didn't feel like, I had the support during birth with Walter, and I kinda knew that I wasn't going to because he wanted to go in blindfolded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So and I get it, he was scared, like, this was all brand new for him with Walter's birth, but I couldn't get myself mentally prepared for Isla's.
Yeah.
Um, at about it was about 21 weeks or so when they did the anatomy scan for her, and I found out she was a girl. um, they started doing all these images of her brain, like, more so than normal,
Okay.
and I got really nervous, and I asked the X-ray tech, I'm like, what'd you find?"
Mhm.
You know, because 'cause I'm like, "You are taking way too many pictures of her brain for my
Yeah.
comfort." And what they ended up finding was a little cyst on her brain. Um, so the whole point, I guess the whole objective of that anatomy scan was to find out her gender so that our oldest 2 boys could be the ones to tell us what she was, like, if it was a boy or a girl, because we had the, like, smoke bombs and everything for them, and, like, we really
Yeah.
wanted them to, like, be involved and make it a big thing for them, so they'd be excited.
Yeah.
Um, and all I could think about the entire time, because I had to go back to work after the scan. I had to go
Oh,
back to work, and all I could think about was the cyst on her brain.
yeah.
So I used Doctor Google and freaked myself out.
Yeah.
So I ended up going home that day just, like, almost in tears, and I pull into our driveway, and there's the 2 older boys, and there's Spencer holding Wally, and they're all excited for me to come in, and all I can think about is a cyst on her brain, which I didn't even know it was a girl at that point.
You're right.
Um, but so we did the little gender reveal, and then I told Spencer because he wasn't able to make it to that appointment. I'm like, "Well, she's got a cyst on her brain," and so I was all tensed up about that too, like, going into birth, like, thinking, "Oh my gosh, there's something wrong with my baby. I don't wanna give birth yet, like, she's not okay yet," like, there
Right.
was a lot of fearful thinking going into it. Um, we ended up seeing a specialist at, like, 26 weeks, and they did a scan of her brain, and the cyst had completely dissolved.
Cool.
So, I knew, like, she was fine. I knew
Right.
she was fine, but I couldn't get over, like, the what ifs.
Yeah.
Like, "Well, what if they didn't catch this? Or what if they didn't catch that?" So I wasn't prepared for her birth. I was very scared, and I tried to do, like, as much, like, prenatal yoga to calm myself down, and I just for some reason with her, I just could not get my head, like, in that place where it needs to be to give birth, because it's such a mind game.
It is, yeah.
So, with her, we went in at 39 weeks again, and it was advised just because Colin's birth was so quick, and then Wally's birth was so quick. There's like, "You should probably, come in," and I was okay with that because at that point, always been open to home birth. Like, if it happened at home, I would be so happy.
Yeah.
But but with her, I'm like, "I'm so scared. I need total control of the situation."
Yeah.
So we went in at 39 weeks and they broke my water, but immediately I'm like, "Give me the epidural. I don't want to feel a thing."
Yeah.
Because I was already like, I'm like, I knew that once labor started that there's no way I could get myself in that mindset. I knew I was going to freak out as soon as the
Right.
contractions started and everything. So I'm like, immediately, please give me the epidural. I don't want to feel a thing. I never felt one contraction with her.
Oh gosh.
And we were sitting there like playing Words with Friends with each other.
Were you?
Yes.
Way to
Because
prepare
it
for the
was,
baby.
yes, I know. I'm like, well, I can't feel anything anyway, so we may as well play games on our phone. Um,
That's
and
cute.
I think I want to believe that the epidural made it like the labor last longer because I went in at like 8:30, 9 o'clock again with her, and she wasn't delivered until almost 7 p.m.
Oh well. Yeah.
So for someone who has quick births like me, and that was the first one I had an epidural with, I think that's why it took so long.
Yeah.
That and like my mind
You weren't
and my body,
ready.
I wasn't ready.
You weren't ready
I
yet.
wasn't ready for her at all. But here she is. She came out just fine. screaming.
Aw.
She's totally fine.
Yeah,
That one was kinda cute because at our hospital, they play a lullaby over the PA, like, all through the hospital. So every time a baby is born in the hospital, they play that little lullaby,
that's so sweet.
and so Walter got to push that button, and he wasn't even 2 years old at that time, but I was just watching that video today, and I just thought I'm like, "Oh my god, that was the sweetest moment,"
That is
because he
so
got to
cute.
tell everybody that his sister was here.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah. So
Um,
there's
in terms of having kiddos kind of spaced out, you had two kiddos, you said 6 to 8 years between the two oldest and the second set. Did
yep.
you notice differences in like, having babies and then having some slightly older children and like bringing them home and like differences in like family dynamic or sibling dynamic or anything like that?
Um, I I have I think it was definitely easier to bring the younger 2 home because, first of all, I had the experience there already,
Yeah.
but then the older 2 wanted to be so hands-on that
Awesome.
they were even if I just needed them just to, just sit on the couch and just hold the baby for a minute, like, they were there. So it was just easier just to have those little sets of hands there.
Yeah.
And they were also so interested in everything. So, like, nursing, they would just watch. They're
Yeah.
what's happening?" Like, it was sweet, for the older 2 to see everything, firsthand, whereas the younger ones, they didn't get to experience any of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's cool to
Yeah,
see those differences too,
yeah.
with the kiddos.
And the
Because I,
boys, they click. Like,
yeah,
even though Walter is 6 years younger than Colin, him and Colin, they click. They get along so well that I can just Colin's just like his little dad, and
yeah,
it's pretty cute. He just takes him under his wing.
that's so sweet.
Yeah,
That's cool to see with like siblings too. Because there's
yeah,
personally 8 years between me and my little brother. So you see some of those
right?
differences I notice with myself or my friends that have kids that are could be spaced out a little bit. It's
Mhm.
cool to see some of those differences.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that you felt the most prepared for your first birth versus some of the other births. What made you feel most prepared for that first birth? You mentioned the Lamaze that you did with your sister. Were there
Mhm.
other steps that you took to prepare, like
I
mentally
think
or physically?
I think not so much physically. I mean, because he was my first child, I am like, I don't know what this is gonna do to my body. I'm just
Right.
going with it. So I didn't do any, and plus I was so young. I
Right.
didn't know what I should be doing or whatnot. I think the reason why I felt so prepared with Owen was because my family, well, both of our families threw us such a big baby shower. It
Aw.
was huge. And so we had we had everything that we needed. I took the classes. I we had everything was just ready for him. So I think that's why, like, even though going into the birth, not knowing what was going to happen, I knew afterwards, like, we were good. So I
Yeah.
think that's why I felt so prepared with him, which is not the norm, I feel, for a first child.
Yeah. That's
So
wow.
it but it yeah, I know.
We're all like,
And it
WTF, what are we doing?
exactly. And I think too, because I was home, I was in my hometown with him. I had all of my family. I had all of, Andy's family. So it didn't seem so scary because I knew I had everybody.
That's awesome.
Whereas the rest, like with Colin, I gave birth to him. I was completely alone.
Yeah.
I didn't have any family in North Carolina. As soon as I gave birth to him, Andy had to go pick up Owen and take him home. So I was truly alone for like 48 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was I didn't like it. I
Right.
didn't like being alone. I liked having everybody around me. So and
Yeah.
I think yeah, so I think that going back to why I felt like I was prepared for Owen, but yeah, everything was just I had mentally prepared with the classes. Um, I kind of knew what to expect, but then again, it was all brand new. So I didn't know what the heck I was gonna be hit with.
Right.
I felt most prepared because I guess I didn't know what was coming too.
Right.
Yeah.
If you were to do this all over again, if there was another baby to come into your world, what or would there be anything different that you would do? With all the knowledge that you know, with some of the doula classes you've taken, is there anything you would change about another baby for you?
I as amazing as our staff was here at the hospital for the 3 of the 4 births, because Colin poor Colin. Um, I always had amazing experience at our hospital. The nurses were incredible. They always let me birth the way that I wanted to. Um, but if there was one thing I could change, like, if I had another baby, I would try my hardest to have that baby at home.
That's awesome.
Just be, 'cause it's too peoply. That makes sense? It gets
It
too
does.
peoply. There's so much commotion when you give birth. There's people coming in and out, and it's stressful. As much as you can, like, prepare yourself for that, it doesn't prepare you for what comes afterwards, and it's the constant people coming in and out, taking the baby, like, doing all these things to the baby. It's just I would rather just be at home. So if I had another baby, I would just rather stay home.
The peace of at home. No,
The
I could
peace of
totally
at
understand
home.
that.
Yeah.
Totally. I have one friend that was discussing her birth, and she was like, I had a place where I thought I was going to have baby, and then it totally changed. She's like, it just didn't feel right. So I kind of like moved around the house to find out where it felt right. And I can imagine, like, in a hospital, you get that one option. You get that room that
Yeah,
they give you. That is your only option. Like,
right.
you
You
don't
get
get to
that
choose.
one room. Although
If you're
I
lucky.
was mu if you're lucky,
If you
yes,
make it to that room.
which I almost did not,
Right. That's what I was
Colin.
thinking of. I was like, oh, Jane almost didn't make it to that room.
I seem to be more of a hall lady. Like, I walk the halls, like, nonstop. Heck, I even had Colin in the hall almost.
Oh
But
gosh.
I refuse what actually and that reminds me with, um with Owen and Co or I shouldn't say that. With Owen and Wally, all I wanted to do was walk. I, like, refused to get into the bed until, like, there was no more time. Like, "I'm just gonna walk. I'm just gonna walk," and I probably walked so many miles with Owen, especially because it was a longer birth,
Yeah.
but that's
You
what I
didn't keep
did.
your
I
Fitbit
just
on or your tracker.
No, I did not. I don't think that was a
You
thing
walked
then.
the baby out, right? Oh my gosh, I know.
I
That
walked
is
the
so
babies
cute.
out. Yep,
But I love that
but
they let you
yeah.
walk because there's certain situations where I know like they don't always allow women to choose that or move. Like once you're there, you're on the bed, you're on the bed. Like you're not moving at all. So that's really nice to hear that in some hospital settings you do have those options still to be able to move and move
I
around.
made sure that I communicated that a lot beforehand. I never wanted the monitor on me, like, continuously, like, that first of all, it's uncomfortable, but
Right.
then it's restricting because then you have to stay in one spot, and so I made sure when I was going in with Owen, I'm like, "This is what" and I know you can only ask for so much.
Yeah.
There's only so much because they have to do what they have to do as well, but they listened, and we followed my birth plan as much as possible, and that too, I think that was why it was such a good experience with Owen, was because they kinda just they left me alone. They just let me, do what I wanted. I was eating McDonald's.
Maybe
That's
not
all
the
I
best
wanted.
choice, but
No, it was not, but they let me do it because I
yeah.
wanted to.
Make her happy. I
Uh,
do like that aspect of it though.
yeah. They're like, "Ooh, anything we can get you, we'll get you.
Yeah.
You just let us know." And the nurses just would poke their heads in, "Hey, do you need anything?" And they just left me alone. And that's really all I wanted. I'm not
Yeah.
much like I said earlier, it gets too peoply, but that was exactly what I didn't want was
Yeah.
to be bugged while I was trying to, work a human out of my body.
Right? Yeah. I can't imagine. It's like when like in the TV shows and stuff when they have all of the interns come in and I'm like, "No, please God, don't let that happen.
Yeah.
No interns
Yep.
allowed."
Oh
I was
gosh.
an intern at one point, but no.
All modesty goes out the window with
Right?
childbirth. Like, I believe And I can't remember exactly who it was with because, again, when you get in that mindset, like, you block a lot out that's going on around you. And
Yeah.
but I think with Walter, we did have students in there, but I was okay with that because he was my 3rd. All
Yeah.
modesty was gone. Like,
Uh-huh.
I didn't care. This was, these students had to learn too, so I'm
Yeah.
like, "I don't care, you can come
Right.
watch."
If you want to see
"If
this.
you wanna be traumatized." I'm just
Right.
kidding.
Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
That is true. They do have to see it. However, I
they
can't
do,
imagine for
yeah.
a first birth personally. But yeah, by the third time you're just like, I got this.
Yeah,
I've done this a
watch
couple
this.
times. Yeah, right. Watch this trick.
Exactly.
um if there was something that you wish someone would have told you before pregnancy or before birth, is there any like advice or any tips you wish someone would have said, this is what's going to happen to you? Or not necessarily you in general, but just in general to women like that. This is something that we kind of all go through during the process. Is there any like tips where you're like, man, someone should have told us all that?
So, a funny thing is I'm the first one of any of my friends to give birth,
Ooh.
so I was like the guinea pig.
Yeah.
All of the friends came to me and they're like, What should we expect? What's gonna happen?" So I was the one that went through everything just, like, completely blind, and
Yeah.
then and then all my friends used me as, like, the guide, and actually, that's funny because that's probably why I became a doula,
Yeah.
was because I was, like, verbally coaching all of my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did actually, that just clicked just now.
That's so cool.
That makes sense.
Epiphany
But
moment. I love it.
light bulb.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think with Owen, I didn't realize that I could birth in any other position other than laying on my back.
Ooh,
I
that's
didn't
a good one.
realize that, and I was a baby. I was only 20.
Yeah.
So, I didn't realize that I had the option to move around when I was giving birth.
Yeah.
And, but I think that was my biggest thing that I wish somebody would have told me ahead of time. But I think at the same time, a lot of women nowadays are like, "Don't lay on your back. Don't lay on your back. That's the worst position." You
Yeah.
know, but I think I got comfortable in that position myself because I had
Right.
back labor with all of my kids,
Oh, yeah.
all of them. So I think the pressure of me laying on my back, 'cause I wasn't flat, it was just, like, the
Right.
pressure on my tailbone, I think helped me, and I think that's why, looking back, why I stayed in that position.
Right.
But, yeah, had I known that I can move around, I would have tried, at least tried to see if something else worked, but,
Yeah.
yeah,
But it seems like that worked out well for you then. So that's a good
it
thing to note
did.
too, is if back being on your back to birth is the most comfortable, then it's the most comfortable. If being on all fours is the
Right,
most comfortable, it's the most comfortable. Like
right.
squatting, if that's the most comfortable. It's kind of how
Yeah,
baby wants to come out into the world. It's like the whole
they're
guessing
gonna
game. Like Colin coming on
exactly.
time is like not a thing. Like it's a guessing
By
game when
12
baby's gonna come. Yeah,
minutes.
right? You're late, dude.
So that's the funny thing. He was born on 12/20/10 at 12/12.
Oh wow, that's so
So,
cool.
yeah, it was his is easiest to remember.
Right? You're like, I never will forget his.
Never, never. I don't think he'll forget his.
Probably not now. Nor should he.
Nor should he.
Very cool. Is there anything else you want to mention about your pregnancies or births before I ask my last question?
Um, I thought for sure I would think of things, like, while I'm talking to you, and it's just not happening.
That's
Like,
okay.
I
We can do
I'm
a part
I'm
two.
just I spew things out, like, as I think of them, so I'm just like, I can't think of anything.
Great. You did good. Last question. If there was a theme song to being a mother or motherhood at this moment for you with kids 15, 13, 7, and 5, what would your theme song to being a mother be?
Oh my gosh. Oh god. I'm blanking. like, the funny thing is you asked me this question, I can't think of a single song ever. I'm like,
Okay, what
"What is
about
music?"
yeah, right? What about what genre would a movie be? Like, if your life is a movie right now, what genre would you be?
Oh, heavy metal for sure. Just like just we're
I
going
love
for it. It's intense,
it.
it's crazy, it's busy, but I still enjoy it.
Awesome. I love it. That is the best way to that is the best way to describe it. I like
It's
it.
heavy. It's heavy, but I still enjoy
Yeah.
it.
It's a little loud
I
for the ears
scream.
sometimes, like
Yeah. I'll scream sometimes. Everybody's yelling at some point,
yeah.
but it's
We don't
fine.
always make out what each other are saying, but it's okay. We eventually
No,
figure it out.
yeah. Yeah, we're fine. We're fine over here. Everything's fine.
Oh, I love it. Well, that's all I have for you. I do appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the podcast. I appreciate it. Like just being able to share your heart and your babies and pregnancies and losses.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that because I think it's helpful for other women to know what to expect or how different everything is for birth, you know? Like there's
Yeah.
no right or wrong way. Because I think we
Every
get that in
single
our
one
head
of them was
sometimes.
different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
Yep.
awesome.
There's no right or wrong way. I mean, baby's gonna come when they want. They're gonna come out how they want. You do not have control over that. So you just gotta you let your body take control is all I
Yeah.
could think of is like get your mind there and then just let your body take control because
Yeah.
you have no control over it.
I think that is so true. That's what I've learned on like interviewing these like friends and women on this is surrender is the biggest one. And then the
Mhm.
next one is it's a mind game, total head game.
100%.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's good to
And that
hear
was
these correlations through all the stories.
uh-huh. And I think and it was I that's probably the best way to describe it with Isla's pregnancy is I couldn't get in the mind game and I couldn't surrender. So it was just like, yeah, I think that's why hers was the most traumatic for me. There was
Yeah.
no trauma, but it was just like it was traumatic for me because it wasn't like any of the other births.
Right.
And I
But
couldn't.
mentally too, I mean, I can imagine how traumatic that would be to be at the scan, being alone too, like partner,
Mhm.
spouse not being there with you
Yes.
and finding out that there's a tumor. Because like you said, you know, you're like she's scanning or they're scanning this area like over and over again. Like, what are
Uh-huh.
they doing? Why are they doing this? And they tell you, oh, by the way, there's like a cyst on the brain. Surprise. Okay, bye. Have a
Right.
good day. Like, what do you mean?
Right.
You're
Yeah,
just gonna
that
send me home. You're not gonna
I'm
say
just
anything
supposed to go
else.
home like this?
Like
Like
you're not
my
gonna say it's
baby's
okay.
just
It's like a normal cyst. Like this is normal, which it's really not. But you know what I mean? Like,
like I needed anything other than just like, "Oh, she's got a cyst in her brain. Okay, thanks. See ya. Have a
yeah,
great day."
yeah.
You
Good
know?
luck. Bye.
Yeah. That's probably when I started, like, really closing up with her because
Yeah,
I was like, this was gonna be different.
yeah,
So and I had all those weeks to like, between that ultrasound and when we saw the specialist, there was, like, 6 weeks, I think, and it's so the things that go through your head, like, in that amount of time, it's it's incredible because
yeah,
it goes everywhere from, "Oh, she's gonna be fine," to, "I'm gonna give birth to her, and she's gonna live for an hour, and then we're gonna have to say goodbye to her." So it goes from all like, it ranges all in there, like, you do not know what to expect. So I
yeah.
freaked myself out, and then I couldn't get out of it.
Which is totally understandable. And I'm sure there
Yeah,
are more women than not that have experienced similar things too,
yeah,
unfortunately.
probably. Yeah,
Like,
yep,
yeah,
and a lot of them aren't as lucky as we were, where, her cyst dissolved pretty much,
right.
and she ended up being a perfectly healthy baby.
Yeah,
So we're grateful for that.
definitely. Get the wild ones running around.
Yes. She wrangles those boys too, man.
I love it. I
We're all
bet.
we're all a little scared of her. She's only 5 and we're like, "Ooh, don't upset Isla."
All I can think of is like little Hurricane Isla running around.
She really has these blonde curls too. She's the cutest dang thing, but we're
uh,
all a little scared of her, but she's doing good.
in the best way, obviously.
Of course, of course.
I love that. Well, I appreciate your time. And it was
Thank
good
you for having me.
chatting and catching up with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Well, you
nice
have a,
seeing your face.
I know you too. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.